Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech Podcast. My guest today is Peter Voss. He's the CEO and Chief Scientist at a company called Aigo, A-I-G-O. Website is aigo.ai. Peter, how are you today?
Great. Thank you. How are you?
Good. So tell me about Aigo. What's the idea of the company?
So Aigo is revolutionizing personal assistants. So right now we really don't have personal assistants at all. What we have is chatbots that really aren't very smart, and also they are not personal because we don't control them. They don't belong to us. We don't control the data that they have. We don't control what information is shared, and they really don't learn and adapt. So to our own needs. So that's what we've developed over the last 15 years. Technology that allows us to have a truly intelligent and hyper-personalized assistant.
Yeah, it sounds like definitely chatbots have a long way to go. I agree with my experiences with them. They're pretty lame and limited. So what are you making, a super chatbot, a more advanced version that works better, or is your premise different from that?
Right, exactly. Well, I hate to call Aigo a chatbot because we really sort of light years ahead of the chatbot technology. And let me expand a little bit on that. So the current chatbots that are out there, the Aigo, the Alexa and Siri and Google and so on, they all use sort of very simple statistical technology. And the problem is, they don't have memory. They don't remember what you said 2 minutes ago, never mind what you said yesterday or last week. So they don't have memory. They don't learn interactively. Even if I say something as simple, I have a sister called Barbara or something, it wouldn't remember that. They don't really have any depth of understanding. So for example, if I say, call me Uber, it'll, pop up the Uber app or call Uber. But if I say I hate Uber, it'll still pop up the Uber app. So there really isn't, it's just statistical matching. Does this sound like, oh, I think you want Uber because you said something about Uber. So they don't have deep understanding. So no memory, no learning, no deep understanding. They can't explain themselves. They can't reason. So you really can't have a meaningful ongoing conversation with these chatbots. And that's because of the technology that they use. So what we've been perfecting and improving over the last 15 years is technology that inherently has a cognitive architecture that works more the way our brain does, our mind does, that does have memory, deeper understanding, that can learn immediately, interactively, that can reason, and therefore you can have ongoing conversations, and it learns and adapts to you and learns your goals and preferences.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You make the chatbots sound like politicians. No memory, no understanding, no nothing,
Yes, I haven't heard that analogy, but yes, I may use that in the future.
So, all right, yeah, a lot of the features you spoke about I hadn't thought of. That's pretty cool. So what, do you have an example of your product yet and how would it interact differently? Or do you just have a vision right now on how it'll interact differently?
Right, absolutely. So, so the problem of natural language understanding and having conversations is really a very hard one. I mean, language is quite complex, and so I actually spent when I sold my first big company, I spent 5 years just doing basic research on how to build these thinking, learning machines, and then in about 2001. We started developing various prototypes and developing a platform. In 2001, I actually also coined the term AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, together with two other people, which is, taking artificial intelligence to this kind of level of thinking and learning and remembering. by 2008, we had developed the technology sufficiently to actually commercialize it in the call center space. So that's a company called Smart Action that I formed, and Smart Action now is serving clients like AAA and MGM hotels. So the Bellagio is using it. But if you break down the side of the road, you'll be talking to one of our first generation, one of our early Aigos, and will help you on the side of the road. So what we can offer with our technology is a much better experience. Normally, when you call into a call center and you end up talking to a computer, people just want to get out and just press 0 and get me to a live person. But with our technology, it actually understands you in natural language. It remembers what you said earlier, so you can have you have a much better experience. So this was our first commercialization of this product in the call center, and that's ongoing. Smart Action is now about 100 people. But for the last 5 years, I've been with a new company with Aigo.ai. We've been essentially in stealth mode, taking this technology to the next level and making, allowing it to have much longer conversation, much more complex conversations, and we are now ready to commercialize it as what we call a personal assistant, which is much smarter than the current chatbots, but also importantly, you own it and you control it. And that's why we call it a personal assistant. So the word personal here is really key in 3 different meanings of the word. The first one is it's your personal property. You own it and you own your data. The second thing, it's personalized, it's customized to you. So it learns your preferences, your goals, your history, and it gets better and better over time. So it fits like a glove, unlike the current chatbots, which are a one size fits all. And then the third meaning of personal is that it's personal in the sense of this is personal information, this is private. So you decide what you want Aigo to share with whom. Some things you may share with your colleagues, other things with your family, some things you want to brag about to the world, and some things should just be between you and Aigo. So that's really how our application is just completely, completely different from the current experience. It's much smarter, and it's truly you own and control it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess what you would own is, you own the architecture being the developer of it, but I would own a personalized version of Aigo once I start personalizing it. So I own that part of it, right?
Exactly, yes. So there's essentially a copy of our software that you own, and if you want to delete it at some point, you would just go and delete it and it'll be gone. So we won't sell or share your data. So it's truly yours in the sense that you control it. Now, of course, we do encourage people to take a backup of it, because if you wake up the next morning and say, "Oh no, I didn't mean to delete my Aigo. Give me back my Aigo," when you wake up sober. So you obviously can restore Aigo from your backup. But yes, that's
what did you notice from the lower level personalization that you did? If you with AAA, you get stuck on the side of the road, someone calls in. What did you notice? Did people think it was a person? Did they know it was a computer, but they were able to work with it better?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question, because Google a few months ago gave a presentation of their duplex technology, where they did a call to book an appointment somewhere, and they added ums and ahs in there to sort of make it sound like a person. I personally believe that's not a very good thing to do. I think you should always be very straightforward and explain very open about saying, no, this is a computer you're talking to, albeit a very smart and capable computer. So I don't think you should try and fool people into saying this is that you're talking to a person. And our experience is that people don't mind at all talking to a computer if it gets the job done efficiently. They just want to, they call in, they want to get something done. So my recommendation is always to be upfront about that it is a computer, but the system just needs to be very good, very capable. Yeah, that's I think sort of a philosophical difference where some companies are actually trying to fool you into thinking you're talking to a human.
Well, they probably confuse that with the end result people want. Like you said, your experience is that people are fine to talk to a computer as long as it handles their transaction efficiently and understands, which I agree with, you know.
Yeah, and in fact, it goes further than that. We have also experienced that for certain types of things, you know, if somebody just wants to find out the order status or something, they actually prefer using a computer because they don't actually, a lot of people feel, I don't want to bother a human with something that maybe I should be looking up online anyway, or something that I should do. So it actually can work the other way around, that people actually prefer using a computerized system, A, not to bother a person, and B, sometimes things are like maybe a little embarrassed about whatever they're calling about, you know. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic which we didn't necessarily anticipate when we started doing this.
Well, what about AI assistance to customer service people? So if I do call into a customer service person, that customer service person, I would think, should definitely have access to AI so they can answer some of those questions that they happen to get asked live really quickly. Have the AI step in and help them.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of applications where you're using an assistant, you know, just to basically be able to give better service. That's definitely one of the applications that we're also looking at. Yeah.
So again, what did you notice with the AAA example or other examples like that? What kind of feedback did you get on your technology?
Oh, I mean, you know, when it works seamlessly and, you know, people just get the job done, they're just very happy, you know. So we do get a lot of compliments, and, you know, ultimately you measure that you can, you know, get very strong metrics on that by seeing how many people try to press 0 to talk to an operator, you know, how many calls are completed successfully where, you know, basically they get exactly done what they want in a very efficient manner. And, you know, and those metrics are, you know, just look very good with the right kind of system.
All right. And then what about the personalized AI? What kind of tasks would it help you do? And what does the personalization do?
Right. So, let me just sort of backtrack on one thing. One of the key differences between our personal assistant and the current chatbots, and that's really key, is the current chatbots are designed by the mega corporations to serve their agenda. They're not designed to serve your agenda. You know, they're inherently designed to, you know, give you more, improve the click rate, you know, push more ads to you, or to sell you more stuff in the case of Amazon, or to keep you in their walled garden, as, you know, for Apple or for all of them really. So they really don't serve your agenda by having a personal assistant. You know, it would you know, if you ask it for a recommendation, it would then could recommend an iPhone for you, but it could also recommend an Android for you. You know, depending whatever is better for you, or to buy something at Amazon or to buy something at Walmart. That's the whole idea of having a personal assistant, is that it serves your agenda. Now, the kind of things that we're doing, our core functionality that we have at this point is, you know, to help you with sort of reminders and calendars, and help you with email, to answer questions for you. And then we are adding many interfaces and applications to current apps. And we're actually creating a whole ecosystem we're actually doing a token sale of Aigo tokens right now to build a community of people who will use Aigo, but also create additional skills for Aigo, because you can teach Aigo in natural language. So, for example, if you have the skill of helping people manage their stress, then you could teach Aigo in natural language how to help somebody manage their stress. You know, Aigo might remind you a few times during the day, hey, how are you doing? And then, you know, it might, I don't know, guide you to do breathing exercises or listen to classical music or whatever. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that field. Or somebody could be good at helping a startup business, or somebody could have the knowledge of how to plan a wedding, and they can teach Aigo those skills. And within our ecosystem, they can then offer that in our Aigo store to other people. So this whole community of contributing skills to Aigo. So think of it like Wikipedia, where you have domain experts contributing to a common pool. In our case, it would be domain experts contributing to the skill level, the skills and knowledge that Aigo has, but they get compensated for it, unlike Wikipedia. So we'll just basically very rapidly grow the repertoire of capabilities that Aigo has.
Well, something I was thinking about, in order for you to have the latest version, or in order for Aigo's AI to be able to, learn better and train and all that, you would have to push updates to my personalized AI, for instance. So how do you keep my data private, yet make sure that, the software is still connected to maybe your servers so it can be updated, troubleshooted, patched, I can take advantage of the learning from other people, et cetera, that kind of stuff.
Right, exactly. Yeah, very, very good question. So yes, there's obviously always some trade-off in terms of how disconnected your system is from others. So we think that the sensible way of doing it is to have Aigo run in the cloud, because you really want to have Aigo available wherever you are. From your computer, from your phone, potentially from a home speaker, in your car, ultimately. So you really want Aigo running in the cloud. And what you have is you could think of Aigo as being 3 concentric circles, where the inner circle are the core capabilities that Aigo has. And that's language capabilities, knowing about people and places, general knowledge, basically, and general skills. And that's the core functionality that we keep improving and increasing. And those improvements are periodically made available to everybody to increase everybody's skills. Then the next circle out are the additional skills that other people provide for Aigo, like the wedding planner or the stress management or whatever. And that you basically will download from the store and add to your Aigo. So those are the skills. And then the outer circle is your unique personal information that is there. And that is not shared with anybody else. That's yours privately. If you want to contribute, knowledge and skills to the community, then you could do that explicitly. But that also has to go through some kind of a QA process. We wouldn't just want, obviously we can't just have people willy-nilly teaching the core Aigo stuff, without it going through a quality, stringent quality assurance process.
So wouldn't you want to ongoingly take advantage of anonymized data for certain tasks? Like, let's say you have 10,000 users that are all training Aigo to schedule appointments for them in Google Calendar or something. I would be sure you'd want to take an anonymized form of that data and have the permission to use it so Aigo can get really good at it, but the person's specific data is protected at least.
Correct. Yes. No, we will certainly use statistical information from the way people use the system. I mean, we need to know, what holds there are in Aigo's knowledge and so on. So certainly we will use anonymized data to improve Aigo, but we will not share or sell that data. So yes, absolutely, it makes sense for us to use it to improve the functionality.
Okay. So what modules are in production right now? Where are you at with the project? Or you have a certain number of users using it, or you're not there yet?
Right. Yeah. No, as far as the second generation that we've been in stealth for the last 5 years, just improving the technology. And we're just in the process of closing our funding round now for the new commercial venture that goes beyond call center applications. And so as soon as we close the funding round, which we expect to do in the next few weeks, we'll be putting together our commercial team, and we'll start making it available to the first beta users 2 months from now. So later this year, we will start rolling out the product. But right now, we have a development team of 12 people that have been on the project for basically the last 5 years. And but we basically have to have obviously a support team and a team to help with the scaling and the rollout of the product. And that'll be happening soon.
Yeah, I know you don't want to give away secret sauce, but can you give some details on what some of the features will be for the beta program users?
So we, as I mentioned, we're building out the community that will help to contribute to the skills. And we are looking at actually several partnerships that we have. We've announced 2 partnerships. We are also targeting some specific use cases that we will sort of test market and see, where people have, where we can get the most traction, where people get the most benefit, because obviously we have to change people's behavior in terms of trying to use these free chatbots that, you're selling your soul and they're very limited, versus having a dedicated personal assistant that they will have to pay for, but it'll, they'll be getting a value for it. So one of the partnerships we've already announced is for a company that actually did an ICO earlier this year in the event ticketing space, trying to deal with eliminating scalpers, so that the artists can be sure that the tickets actually go to their fan base. So they have this blockchain-based system to do that, and they're partnering with us to put Aigo into the loop, so that Aigo will know what kind of performers you like, whether you go by yourself or with how many people you typically go with, your preferred venues and seating. Aigo will also know if you're traveling to another city. You could recommend that maybe some of your favorite performers are actually performing in that city. So Aigo will have that sort of personal management for your events, but you can imagine that obviously from there it can very quickly grow to managing your calendar and reminders and then getting Uber and hotels and things for you. So that's one of the areas we are really committed to developing. And then we're also thinking about potentially for crypto traders to have an assistant for them, because it's obviously a space we're targeting with our token sale. We have another application in mind that we want to test is as a family butler, because actually there are a lot of families that have kids at school, and the kids are always off doing some soccer practice or whatever it might be, and then they might stay overnight with a friend or whatever, and basically coordinating family activities that everybody in the family knows what everybody else is doing. Are we having dinner together tonight, or and what time, and I'm delayed, or pick up the kids on the way home, and having this sort of personalized family butler essentially. That's another idea we're pursuing. And there's some others that are still sort of private. They're just between me and Aigo. So.
Right. Why is the current state of the art with chatbots and things like that just so lame? Is it just because we've only had computing power to have this high level of customization usefulness recently, or is there other reasons?
No, there are other reasons, and it's actually very, very interesting. And of course, our investors always ask that question: well, how can you hope to compete with these big companies? Surely they could do the same thing. And actually, yes, in theory they could, but practice not. So for a number of reasons, they're not in the business of providing personal assistance. They're in the business of using those chatbots to further their main business. So, like I mentioned earlier, you wouldn't really want Siri to recommend that you go and buy an Android, but that's what you'd expect a personal assistant to do, or Alexa to tell you to go and buy at Walmart. So it's not in their interest to actually provide this kind of thing. That's one reason. The second reason is that big data, machine learning, these companies all have a lot of data, a lot of processing power. So that's the hammer they've got. So everything to them looks like a nail. So they try to solve everything with statistical approaches, big data approaches. We don't actually have to program the system. You don't have to give it that intelligence. You just throw enough data at it and it kind of works, statistically speaking. But you have exactly the problems that I mentioned. If you say, I hate Uber, it'll still think that, you want to call Uber. So these statistical approaches are fine for increasing the click rate and sentiment analysis and improving speech recognition itself and image recognition. So they're very valuable. They worth, if they can increase their click rate by 0.5%, it's probably worth billions. So the approach that they have, and DARPA calls this the second wave of AI, these statistical systems, that's what they focused on. And all the people they hire are experts at machine learning, deep learning, statistical systems. In fact, it's become so successful over the last 5 years that if you want to do a PhD in AI, it pretty much has to be in statistical systems. Or you want to earn the big bucks, it has to be in statistical, deep learning. So it's like the air's been sucked, the oxygen has been sucked out of the air as far as AI, other AI approaches. Now, DARPA is calling for what we need is a third wave of AI, which are cognitive architectures that, systems that actually can learn and reason, learn interactively, and reason and have memory and a deeper understanding. And that's basically what I came up with 20 years ago, and we've been working on, but it's very, very few people are working on it. So you have, on the one hand, they don't have the motivation to produce a personal assistant. And secondly, they're just fundamentally using the wrong technology because that technology works to further their business. There's actually a third kind of interesting dynamic here is to truly design systems in the third wave of AI, to build cognitive architectures. To get that to work, what I've discovered is you need to have people that can think like cognitive psychologists. They need to be able to understand the problem of cognition from not just a programmer's point of view, but from a cognitive psychologist's point of view. What are the elements of thinking, of cognition, of reasoning, of concept formation, and all of those. So you need to be able to think about the problem at a high level, from a cognitive psychology perspective, but then you also need to have the skills to be able to implement it. So you need to have the engineering skills, and the overlap of people who are good at both disciplines is, it's a small subsection. Most good software engineers think like mathematicians, like logicians. They're not comfortable thinking like cognitive psychologists. And most cognitive psychologists don't think like engineers.
Yeah, I guess you would need both on a team. I don't know if you'll find it within the same person, but
well, actually, you actually do. In fact, our team we call I kind of invented the profession. We call them AI psychologists. So people on our team exactly have those skills, and you really need that in order to implement this successfully.
Yeah, it's weird. I guess in order for AI to advance at this point or all along the path, you need to make it. I guess, like you said, you need to understand the cognition. You need to make it more like how people would think, not just raw brute force of calculation.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. So it's an interesting perspective. I could tell you've been thinking about this for a long time. Because I guess from what I've heard from other people is that, the last few years, and there's been an uptick in the raw, brute force computational ability, but the other stuff's missing. So I understand. Right.
As I say, the kind of, the oxygen's been sucked out of the air with just the amount of money. I mean, incredible. People are getting $1 million sign-up bonuses for machine learning, deep learning, because it is so valuable to these big companies to improve their statistics. So it's you really have very few people even trying to solve the problem of cognition right now.
Okay, well, very good. So what's the best way for people to maybe sign up for the beta group? I don't know if it's full or to find out more about Aigo and interact.
Yes, you can actually sign up for a serial number, an early serial number of Aigo, a low serial number. But basically, simply by going to our Aigo.ai website, there is a button there to sign up, and you'll get some email then informing you how to get your serial number. And I've also published a lot of the things I've been talking about. I've published quite a lot of articles on Medium.com. So so my name, Peter Voss, on Medium, you'll find that there's also a link on our website to my articles.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Peter, for not only resources, but also, for the upcoming beta program. So, well, very good. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, and I appreciate your time.
Well, great. Thanks for having me. And I hope you'll become one of our early Aigo users. So.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.